Here's more of the Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.
Well, you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow.
Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show, 7:45, the Wednesday after big primary runoff night. And many folks a little blurry-eyed this morning after long nights of elections. And the key statewide race was for Attorney General on the GOP side. Leslie Rutledge winning out in that race, the Associated Press reporting she received 59% of the vote. David Sterling with 41% of the vote. Leslie goes on to take on Nate Steele, a Democrat who we just spoke with. Leslie joins us here in studio. Leslie, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me on this morning, Alice.
Congratulations on a hard-fought victory.
Thank you. We believe that our message and our grassroots efforts across the state made the difference in this campaign, that this campaign from the get-go, as I've talked about before, was about experience. And Arkansans are ready to have an attorney general with experience fighting crime, with experience fighting this overreaching federal government. And that's what we've been talking about since last July, and a phenomenal grassroots effort that, push back against that $1 million of negative ads that were being spent against us, and we think that makes a difference.
And it's been reported. We talked with Roby Brock earlier from Talk Business, and this was part of the story in that you're getting 51% to 41%, being outspent 9-10 to 1, and as it's reported here, you survived an onslaught of out-of-state spending from two third-party groups. Various groups hitting, they were outside groups, but it was helpful to David Sterling. And the fact that you won going against $1 million of out-of-state money and winning on ground game and grit, your thoughts?
I think Arkansans sent a very strong message to out-of-state folks, and particularly the people in Washington, D.C., and what I call these Beltway bandits, that Arkansas is not for sale, that Arkansans know what's best for Arkansans, and whether that's in the Attorney General's office or across the board, that we know what's best for Arkansans. And that's how I'm going to be as Attorney General, is talking to folks here in Arkansas, what we can do to protect Arkansans against crime and to push back against D.C.
And you spoke with David Sterling last night. How did that conversation go?
It was a nice conversation. I really appreciated David reaching out. Certainly in this campaign, we've had some heated conversations, even on this show, and that happens in campaigns. And it's we had a very spirited debate, but I hope to have David's support and his supporters joining on as we move forward to November, and that we have conservatives working together to make sure that we have a victory November 4th.
And he has issued a statement after the results came in, and he said that God has other plans for him right now, and he's eager to see what is in store. And Leslie, at the end of the day, you and your Republican opponent were very similar in your views. And you look at the ads, pro-life, Christian, conservative, NRA supporters, and the outside groups defined it on another issue. So now moving forward for the general, you're going against Nate Steele, who is a Democrat. How do you contrast yourself with him? How are you different on the issues than Nate Steele, who you're going against?
Well, I think it goes back to experience. And I have 13 years of experience practicing law as a prosecutor and counsel to Governor Mike Huckabee and pushing back against this overreaching federal government. Certainly my opponent in the general will not have that experience pushing back against this overreaching federal government. He is of the same party as Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi, and has identified himself with the same party. And while we want all Arkansans to come together, but I think it really just boils down to experience.
And we spoke with Nate Steele just a few moments ago, and he says he opposed Obamacare and would have opposed it. Your thoughts on an issue like that, and how you would distinguish or contrast yourself with him on an issue as huge as Obamacare and the overreach of federal government?
Sure. I think Obamacare, that we can take, we're going to be looking at taking another run at Obamacare. In a few weeks, I'll be sitting down with attorneys general from across the country to talk about how we can attack Obamacare, because it continues to hurt Arkansans, and the law has changed so much So we need to look at ways that we can attack Obamacare, but also, not just Obamacare, but the EPA, which has a stranglehold on our farmers and business owners, the Dodd-Frank with our bankers. There's so many pieces of the federal regulations that hurt Arkansans, hurt Arkansas businesses, that we need a strong conservative attorney general that not only is willing to push back, but has experience pushing back.
And we've had in the news lately a lot with the capital punishment and the administration of lethal injection. How do you see your views on that as compared to Nate Steele? You have to look at it a little differently now with regard to you're going against a Democrat here.
Sure, and I've said from the onset that I support the death penalty, but we do need to have lethal injection and make sure that we have the drugs that are necessary to carry out those executions, because the families of these victims, they need closure, and that's what I'll be working on as Attorney General.
And that's a key component. There's also another issue the current Attorney General is working on, defending the state on, and that deals with the voter ID.
Certainly, and every election we see, there's nothing worse than someone going into the polls only to find out that they've, quote, already voted.
Right.
And we have to protect the integrity of the ballot. Just in Crittenden County, we've seen this recently in elections, and we have to protect the integrity of the ballot box. And so I 100% support our voter ID law, and will be working with our legislators to make sure that it's a good, clean law that will always be upheld if challenged in the courts.
And so many of these that we've discussed are in the news, making headlines, but that's a fraction of what the Attorney General's office does. The role, I think people would be astonished if they knew in terms of consumer protection, internet fraud. What do you see as the issues that may not make the headlines, but it's a high priority in the AG's office that you will focus on?
Consumer protection is a giant part of the office. The office has 173 employees. It's one of the largest parts of state government, and it's because there's so much to do when you have these scam artists, when you have someone selling cars with bad titles, or folks scamming people on the internet or on the phone. Well, there's also a division that goes after internet predators, which is near and dear to me, because I believe that we have a serious problem now. We no longer have to worry about the white van at the end of the street. That person is now a coward hiding behind a Facebook profile and looking to harm our children. And we need to enhance that division and make sure that the people that look to harm our children or take advantage of folks through Medicaid fraud, that we go after those people aggressively.
And there's also the huge problem with human trafficking that is a high priority for our current Attorney General.
It is, and we've talked about human trafficking. Again, Alice, as you mentioned, some of the issues that the primary campaign, we were distracted in a lot of issues, and certainly when you had these out-of-state groups spending $1 million, they distracted us from the issues and the goals and what I want to accomplish as Attorney General.
And I think the key moving forward is what's the strategy, what's the plan? It was a heated primary, as primaries can get, especially when you have $1 million of outside money to come in and influence things. What's the strategy in terms of bringing the Republican Party together, moving full speed ahead? Have you had the opportunity to think about that? But it was a pretty clear line in the sand, and the social media rhetoric was pretty harsh. What's the plan moving forward to move to November?
Well, we're hoping to embrace not just those who were on the other side during the primary season, but also, I had so many people that told me, Leslie, I pulled a Republican ballot for the first time to vote for you. And that's because I want to be the Attorney General for all Arkansans. And we're going to sit down at the table. We're going to break bread with folks, learn what their issues are, if they have problems, and reach out to people, and reach out to independents, reach out to people that might not be decided, Republican or Democrat, because most people really just don't identify themselves. They look for the most qualified person, the person they believe that can represent them best and have the qualifications, and that's what we're going to be doing. And we started doing that in this, as the phones were ringing off the hook, and we had the phone number put out, and I said, we're going to return every single phone call. Because that's how we're going to be in this campaign. That's how I'm going to be as Attorney General, is that every single person that calls with a question or concern, that we're going to reach out to those people.
And we've got less than a minute left. Nate Steele was on. He praised you, said looks forward to the race ahead with you. Your thoughts on going against Nate Steele?
I think it's going to be a great campaign between the two of us. We're going to have the opportunity to talk about issues that Arkansans are concerned about, whether it's the criminal justice system. I think that we both agree that drug courts and alternative sentencing is something that we'd like to see more of. We need to start saving lives and opening up, space and changing people. And I look forward to having those conversations, and I just appreciate the people of Arkansas for voting, and I look forward to the general election.
All right, Leslie Rutledge, the GOP winner of the GOP runoff for Attorney General. Congratulations, and got a long road ahead, but we'll be touching base with you soon. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps it up for this edition of the Alice Stewart Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. We'll talk tomorrow. Glenn Beck is on deck. Stick around. Leslie will be back with Dave Ellswick this afternoon at 2. Take care.
The Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.